Hey guys, Moms Against Medical Bullying. So I just want to share a couple of things today about the state of Kentucky. I'm trying to, okay, share screen. There we go. So first of all, I just want to say if you're in Kentucky and subscribe to this channel called Patriots Point. That's Lee Watts. He's pretty good at giving everybody the legislative updates. So yeah, he has a good channel. So if you're in Kentucky, you need to do this, okay? We're still trying to fight the face covering regulation. So what they keep doing is they remove it. Okay, so the face covering regulation was supposed to be heard again by this administrative regulation review committee when our legislators were back in session. But anyways, they withdrew the regulation and then they did another one. Like they withdrew it, made some changes, and then they reinforced it or whatever. So I got this email here. So they changed the regulation number 902 KR 211E, face covering the face in response to declared national state public health emergency. It says you're receiving this notification that the Department for Public Health has filed the attached emergency administrative regulation. And then down here, okay, and then it says the changes, whatever, that they made. Let's see. Requirement was added to require a person to cover their nose and mouth with a face covering if person inside waiting in line to enter any gym, fitness studio, and also including while actively engaged in exercise. Like these people are really crazy. Like they really lost it. If they think that people should work out with face coverings on, like it's so not right that there's no other really words for it, but that it's not right. Okay, so it says a public hearing on this administrative regulation shall be, if requested, held on March 22nd. I already sent my email. If you're in Kentucky, come on, send your email in here by, let's say they have a date that you submitted by March 15th. So it's going to be held on March 22nd, probably on Zoom. So do it. Either submit a written comment or sign up to say something on Zoom against this regulation. It's a bad regulation, just like vaccination. None of these medical tyrannical things should be in our laws. So contact person Donna Little at chfsregs@kentucky.gov. So this is who you would email to tell that you would like to attend or that you're submitting a written comment. All right. So I've been feeling led to share this again, this social distancing law project, right? Because what I noticed by watching Lee Watts' videos, because he updated us about all the bills that we're going through in this while our legislature is in session. And so this is House Bill 1, and this is, okay, so first of all, I think this was their like final version, but that they submitted to the governor and the governor vetoed it. But when they come back in February, they're like on a little week break or something like that for meeting. I think that they're going to overturn that veto. So yeah. So the problem, so this says, and this is, okay, an act relating to reopening the economy in the Commonwealth of Kentucky in response to the state of emergency declared by Governor of Kentucky beginning in March 2020 and continuing throughout the year of 2021 and declaring an emergency. Be it enacted by the General Assembly of Commonwealth of Kentucky. notwithstanding any state law, administrative regulation, executive order, or executive directive to the contrary, during the current state of emergency declared by the governor in response to COVID-19 or any future state of emergency related to any virus or disease, including but not limited to any mutated strain of the current COVID-19 virus, until January 31st, 2022. So, mutated strain. It's like, it's crazy that anything that Dr. Fauci says, anything that the CDC says is gospel to these people. I think they're afraid of not doing what the CDC says. So, okay. So one, any business, for-profit, not-profit, local government, association, or any school or school district, public, private, or religiously affiliated, may remain open and fully operational for in-person services so long, here's the thing, so long as it adopts an operating plan that meets or exceeds all applicable guidance issued by the CDC or by the executive branch, whichever is least restrictive. I don't get their point of putting that in there, because the executive branch, right, Bashar, has been trying to enforce what the CDC call it, their guidance. So it's like, it doesn't even make sense, because it's wrong. It's still wrong. They're both going to be restrictive, and the executive branch is going to do what the CDC says. So at least this Bashar is. By the way, look at this guy. Look at this goonie. I had up the definition of a goon. It was like a silly person. Look at this, Team Kentucky. And I think there's something to this team thing. Also, it's funny that he's holding a cup and he has a mask on. Like, you ain't drinking that. So what are you doing? So Team Kentucky, right? I think that means something too, especially in reference to this social distancing law assessment. Team Kentucky, like team, kind of makes it seem like we're competing against other states. Like, who can follow all the rules of the CDC? Who can enforce or put the CDC into their laws, right? All right, so let me keep reading. So here they are putting the CDC into the law, saying that businesses, and I'm kind of confused. Like, I guess this just means until 2022. I don't know if that means we're going to be in a state of emergency until 2022 or what. But there's another bill, the Senate Bill 1, that's supposed to restrict the governor's powers. They said, like, for only 30 days. And after 30 days, he has to, ask the legislature. I don't know. All right. So they have to adopt an operating plan that meets or exceeds the CDC guidance, details how the business, for-profit, nonprofit organization, local government, association, or school district, whether public, private, or religiously affiliated, will foster the safety of employees, customers, foster the safety. They have to foster our safety of employees, customers, attendees, and patrons, including social distancing requirements, and is posted. Okay, so they have, kind of like one of those plans that you put up, like a fire escape plan. I mean, does this mean that customers have to follow their plan? You know what I'm saying? Or they just want to see that you have some kind of plan on paper? I don't understand. It's kind of inconspicuous to me. So 3, is posted in a conspicuous place on the main entrance door of the physical location of the business, for-profit and nonprofit organization, local government association, or school district, whether public, private, or religiously affiliated, and on the website of the business. Okay. And then the business, again, they say the same words, for-profit, nonprofit, school, of this subsection itself, or may utilize, they may prepare the plan detailed in paragraph A of this subsection of itself, or may utilize a plan prepared by a local or state government agency, local or state chamber of commerce, trade association, any other recognized affiliated organization. No state or local agency shall enforce restrictions related to the state of emergency impacting the ability of the entities listed in the subsection to remain open and fully operational for in-person services that exceed current applicable guidelines issued by the CDC or the executive branch, whichever is least restrictive. So this is stupid too, because okay, the obviously the governor is going to go along with the Department of Health, and the Department of Health is going to go along with the governor, and they're both going to try to enforce the most restrictive, which is they're going to enforce what the CDC says, which will be the most restrictive. I mean, unless we actually have, someone in the executive branch and at the health department that understands freedom, but they really don't. Because if everybody's mind's under the theory of contagion and the germ theory, there is no freedom, right? There is no freedom in their mind. And one of the lawyers that's doing a lot of the suing of the governor in our state posted on Facebook these emails that was, put out to, as for public, that could be seen by the public. And, it was emails between the health department and the media, and about this cafe named Beans that was staying open when the governor said during like Christmas and all that stuff that everyone had to be closed. They decided they were going to stay open. So they were these emails show that the conversation between the media trying to rat out Beans. That's who started it, is this media guy saying, hey, did you know they're going to stay open, blah, blah. He was trying to stir up trouble. And so the health department and everything like that was going back and forth in conversation. And one comment that I saw was that they were complaining that, oh, these people care so much about their individual freedoms. Like, you can tell they don't respect individual freedom at all. And I could understand why, because they're under the guise of, that system of how to look at disease. So, of course, when you're under that, you can't really understand, you can't understand freedom. You don't think people deserve freedom. So anyways, it's the same paradigm about, everybody has to do the same thing for the benefit of the whole. But the thing is, that thing doesn't benefit anybody. So that's the problem. All right. So I think that's silly to even put that in there, because obviously, obviously the executive branch is going to do what these dudes want. Interest and penalties on unpaid employer contributions pursuant to. All right, I think I'm going to stop. What's it say here? Existing court orders regarding in-person, non-custodial parental visitation, fictive kin visitation, parenting time, or time sharing to a valid court order shall not be restricted, modified, or suspended by the Cabinet for Health and Family Services. All right, so yeah, they go on to talk about that and long-term care, people in long-term care. But I just wanted to focus on the thing about the businesses, because it's like, okay, so our business is going to have to try to enforce masking like till 2022, or I don't really understand. But basically what I wrote to the senator that's supposed to represent the area I live in is, can you remove the CDC from our law? Can you remove social distancing from our laws? Because it's medical tyranny. So, okay. So the reason I wanted to show that House Bill 1 is because I think that this is what Team Kentucky is doing. They want to put the CDC into the guidelines. This is a template from the CDC of how to do that, or for states to go through their laws and to make sure that they're prepared, that they can enforce these guidelines through law. So I shared this already on my channel, but yeah, the social distancing law assessment template. The Social Distancing Law Project provided a very valuable tool for Michigan to improve, what are you growling for? Its legal preparedness for pandemic influenza. It provided a framework to consolidate legal work we had already completed through a structured and comprehensive assessment. I highly recommend the project to other state health directors. So, yeah. Okay, disclaimer, information not to represent any determination or policy of the CDC, not to represent legal advice. Let me see here. The use of law-based community-wide infection control procedures, however, has not been widely practiced in the United States since the first half of the 20th century. New and re-emerging infections and threat of an influenza pandemic have made it necessary to take a fresh look at the legal underpinnings of community infection control measures, especially at state level, where public health and other officials will direct frontline responses to the emergence of such a potentially catastrophic threat. Sponsored by the CDC and directed by the Association of State and Territorial Health Officials, round one of Social Distancing Law Project was conducted in 17 jurisdictions in 2007 to assess the sufficiency of their legal preparedness to implement social distancing effectively. In addition, the participating jurisdictions assess their legal authority to prescribe and dispense pharmaceutical drugs on a mass basis. Honestly, I don't know this for sure, but I think this bill is the first time possibly that the word social distancing is in the law. I think. I don't even know for sure. I can do like a search probably. Let me see if I type it in here. This is what the CDC wanted the states to get in their laws. I put in social distancing. August 2020. Yeah, I think that this is new as of 2020. What is this? 2019? Administrative Register. Crap. Anyways, yeah. So 2019, 2020, fairly new. So I think this is what the team is about. Team Kentucky, we're doing it. We're putting these things in our laws. We're gonna, okay. Let's see. Responding, go down. And then they start talking about public health law. See, the problem with public health law is like, okay, fine, you can have laws about things that don't go on people or don't go in people, right? I mean, law has long played a critical role in addressing both acute and chronic public health problems, dating back to Dr. John Snow's legendary and legalized authorized intervention to remove the handle of the cholera-tainted Broad Street pump in London in 1855. Law was a direct critical underpinning of the great public health achievements. I don't even want to talk about what they call public health achievements, really. But fine, because we all know vaccination damages people's health. Safer and healthier food. I mean, people could argue about that too, right? Safer workplaces. Is it really safer? What do they consider safe? Is it really safe? Who's saying it's safe, right? And notice you don't see anything about sanitation. Maybe that's what they mean by safer and healthier food or clean water, but they didn't even mention those things, which probably, right, were the main things to help people, possibly to improve life, good access to water and a good way to dispose of the waste and the refrigeration. But I don't know, maybe that's tied up in safer and healthier food. So yeah, this is the thing with health, man. It's just that it cannot be standardized for everyone. It just can't, and it shouldn't be, because health is a personal endeavor. Personal health, So, but this is how they get away with vaccines because of the germ theory of contagion. They make it a public and call it a public matter. So, state and local governments have made important improvements in their legal preparedness for public health emergencies following September 11th and anthrax attacks. Few U.S. jurisdictions, however, have experience with community-wide infection control since the mid-1950s, raising questions about the adequacy of underlying legal authorities and about the capacity of public health agencies to implement them effectively in the novel and potentially highly charged setting of an influenza pandemic. I mean, these people, and not to be disgusting, but it's like they have wet dreams about, pandemics. You can tell because they always making movies about this kind of stuff. They love that type of horror. The federal government's approach to social distancing in the context of an influenza pandemic emphasizes reliance on an informed public's voluntary compliance with the recommendations of public health officials. In most cases, voluntary compliance is believed to be sufficient to achieve the desired level of mitigation. Mandatory social distancing measures raise fundamental questions about the balance between individual rights and protection of the health of the larger community. So, like, what if we don't even need to do that, right? Like, what if they're wrong, right? The HSC directives referenced above and the Social Distancing Law Project itself are attempts to clarify understanding of the legal basis for officials' issuance of recommendations, both voluntary and mandatory, recognizing that the clear preference will be for voluntary measures. So, I mean, this is a 50-page document, but yeah, basically Team Kentucky, they did it, right? I mean, there's a reason why the governor vetoed that bill. I don't even want to read it. I don't want to read his words. He said something about it being unconstitutional. It's like, wow, how can you talk about unconstitutional things? Like, you're totally unconstitutional. All right, so in this paper, they talk about Michigan, because Michigan said that they could share the results of this law project that they, that they did in their state. And so the results, it says selected recommendations generated by the Michigan Social Distancing Law Project legal consultation meeting to strengthen legal preparedness for pandemic influenza in Michigan. Recommendation: pursue legislation to improve enforceability of emergency orders issued by local health officers under public health code. This is why we have to speak against this regulation, this right here, 902 KAR 2:211E. See here, they want to seek amendment to public health code to make violation of local health officers' emergency orders a misdemeanor. So yeah, you know, who's in charge of your health, right? Us or the state? This is a big problem, guys. I don't know. Like I was thinking today, like how we how are we going to get out of this one? How are we going to get out of this germ theory contagion pickle that they use to manipulate us, you know, into getting vaccines, into wearing masks? You know, where do you draw the line, right? I think that, you know, we draw the line at our bodies, at our physical bodies, which is our property. Look at this. So, anyways, the last thing I wanted to talk about was Carl Miller. And I was like, man, it's really a good time to learn Carl Miller's stuff, because the problem is that statutes can be unconstitutional. So, and he he has the arguments for that. Um, so judges are supposed to be there to, you know, you know, I guess it's our job or the lawyer's job to persuade the judge that, you know, a specific statute or law is violating a person's rights and is not constitutional, you know. So his special argument here. And what, you know, what's even more crazy is that, you know, businesses have to have these licenses, right? But supposedly we have the right to work, and the state is not allowed to convert a right into a privilege, which they have done with businesses. So not only that, businesses are already under their thumb, but now they're going to add CDC, you know, and social distancing guidelines, you know. Now they're going to add in medical tyranny as well. It's just wild. Let's see here. So he says, obviously, we have established that you have a constitutional right, and obviously, we have established that you are a beneficiary of the contract. We have established that the Constitution is a contract in writing, enforceable in a court of law, and that you have a right to claim specific performance on the contract. We have established that it is supposed to be interpreted in your favor. So if you have an honest constitutional belief, they have to listen. Now let's take it to the next step. Can a state arbitrarily and erroneously convert your right into a privilege and issue a license and fee for it? Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, 319 U.S. 105, 1943, Supreme Court case. Murdoch is basically a religious test case. A religious group wanted to go out and preach among the public, as that is their right to evangelize. Pennsylvania wanted them to have a license to solicit. The group claimed their First Amendment right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the right to worship and exercise their religion unencumbered. The points on the case that are established are: a state may not impose a charge for the enjoyment of a right granted by the federal Constitution, and that a flat license tax here involves restraints in advance the constitutional liberty of press and religion, and inevitably tends to suppress the exercise thereof. And that's kind of my argument with masks. You know, it's like they want to force us to follow a specific, I call it a religion. And so, you know, that enforcement suppresses my exercise of my religion. That the ordinance is non-discriminatory and that it applies also to peddlers. So they tried to say, well, you know, we do this. It applies to peddlers of wares and merchandise. The liberties granted by the First Amendment are in a preferred position, since the privilege in question is guaranteed by the federal Constitution and exists independently of the state's authority. The inquiry as to whether the state has given something for which it cannot ask a return is irrelevant. No state may convert a secured liberty into a privilege and issue a license and fee for it. Now, a lot of people will come back to me and say, well, I'm not part of that religious group. It doesn't apply to me. You need to reach. Understand, we are not talking about whether you're in a religious group or not. We're talking about, are you an American and do you have rights? What they are talking about here is that the religious group exercised their rights timely, that they had a right to worship and evangelize as they chose, and that the state came in and arbitrarily converted that right into a privilege and issued a license and fee for it. That is totally unconstitutional. Now we took that case as a pioneering case, and we argue that case for all of your constitutional rights. All you need to do is keep that in mind. You're an American, you have constitutional rights. You have to keep in mind what right, and can you pull it out of the Constitution? If you can pull it out of the Constitution, and I will give you an example. How about the right to travel freely and unencumbered pursuant to Shapiro versus Thompson, 394 U.S. 618, 1969? How about the right to keep and bear arms? Does the state have the right to require a license and fee for the exercise of that right? And if they do, can you ignore the license and fee? The premise of this case clearly established that no state may convert a secured liberty into a privilege, issue a license and fee for it, and require it to have that. Otherwise, you committed a crime. All right, so I'm just going to stop there. Look at this guy. Ridiculous. All right, I'm going to end this video here. Let me see here. If I can get back to my other screen. How do I turn off screen sharing? So yeah, I just wanted to share that, just because I thought it was interesting that Kentucky is going to be putting this crap in the law. Let me see. Oh, there's the stop share button. Okay. And, I'm not sharing it to fret or anything like that. Because, the truth of the matter is that God, provided a way out from, he saved us from the world, from the world system. And I was reading a little bit of this book by Watchman Nee called Love Not the World. And I really like the points that he makes in there. It doesn't mean that you, like obviously we live in the world, we eat food, we write to representatives and senators, but there has to be a place where the world doesn't have your heart, where the world cannot destroy you on the inside, where the world can't take your peace. So that's the balance of living in the world, but not being of the world, and coming out and having your mind renewed. And I was thinking today that, maybe some people want God to be like, obviously, I don't believe that God sees things as Republican or Democrat or left or right. I think that could be people trying to make God conform to the ways of the world. God's like, my wisdom's higher than that, He's telling us, be not conformed to the world, but be renewed. Don't be getting in petty arguments, fighting over politics. You know what I'm saying? Your heart has to rise. I saved you from that. He's saying, like, I literally saved you from that inside of you. You live in the world, but you're not of the world. So anyways, that's all I'm going to say about that.